Thank you, Michael and Patrick. Also thank you to Venice Art Crawl, 10-year anniversary. When you all called me to say you'd like me to participate, knowing who's involved, of course, I was like, let me just add to the mix. It's always positive, it's always funky, and obviously Venice is an amazing magnet for artists, visual artists, artists of all kinds. So yeah, welcome to the studio. Thank you to my supporting crew. Yeah, the studio is a place where you get work done, where you work through ideas. It's a retreat, it's a hut, it's a cave, it's a cathedral, it's a tool shed, all those less grandiose things, but it's also a place where you welcome in your colleagues, trusted colleagues, for critique, to exchange ideas, to push through blockages, to talk about ideas that you've got, and anticipate opportunities that are coming up and just build. So it's a special place. It's kind of a sacred space, and rather than go on and on about it, I'm going to let you all roam around a little bit and then return to my little preamble about what this space means to me, how it functions for me, and some of the work that you're going to see throughout. So, I like to collect things, objects, books, music, the work that my colleagues do, that I look up to, people I look up to, and people that I chop it up with and sharpen up my ideas with. Probably the most important thing for me is the music, because that brings the pulse. That's the mood. It's kind of my church. I got everything represented here. I got the turntable for the vinyl. I got the cassette for the mixtapes from the 80s and 90s. I found a badass CD player at a yard sale a couple blocks away. The only thing wrong with it was there was a CD stuck in it. And when I called the company that used to make this, they don't exist anymore, but they're like top end. They told me exactly how to take the CD out, and then it just worked perfectly. So then I can get into all my CDs. But the vinyl is really the touchstone. And it's just always rotating. Stevie, Brick, out of Atlanta. Mingus, Unknown Mortal Orchestra. Anyone who knows me, anyone who comes to the studio, they know like music is everything. We got Flying Lotus. We got Bob Marley's produced by Lee Scratch Perry. Motherless Brooklyn soundtrack with some of my photography on there. That's kind of dope. Sex and Food. I don't know if anybody likes Sex and Food, but this is a great album by Unknown Mortal Orchestra. David Bowie, this is a nice one. Eves, two more. I just got this and it's growing on me. It's a great record. More Flying Lotus, some dub. Meters. Look at this album cover. Look at this. how can you go wrong with that album? You know that's gonna be a good record. Oh, check this one out. I mean, classic. Maggot Brain. Aretha. Anyway, music is crucial. Also crucial, the library. This is just like a piece. This is just a portion of the library. It's just always rotating, except for the cornerstone stuff. Roy DeCarava, Gordon Parks, Robert Frank. These are my touchstones, like help me remind me that I'm part of a legacy with the work that I do, and that I gotta reach for excellence. And then over here is just the stuff that is like the conceptual stuff, things that inform the projects that I'm doing at the moment. Actually, interestingly, this piece over here, this 2-panel piece that I'm storing up here, this is called, I call it Other Sons. And it's 2 boys. It's 2 boys on the beach, and they're giving each other support and love along the waterfront. But I actually took the title. The title came from this book by Isabel Wilkerson called The Warmth of Other Suns, about the migration of folks west and elsewhere, African American community migrating out of the South. So anyhow, library is very important, very important. Objects are everywhere. Do you need a bird's nest? Because if you do, I've got one here. What else? I got another bird's nest here. There's another bird's nest right here. If you need pine cones, for example, I also have pine cones. Every single tine, I don't even know what they're called, but every single piece of the broom, the main broom that I use to sweep the sidewalk in the front, as it's been falling apart over 20 years, I save the pieces as they fall out. The goal was I was going to keep this broom until the boys went off to college, so that broom has met its end probably this year. Although it's now online, so I don't know how that affects. What do you want from the liquor store? You can wander a little bit. Oh, before you wander, this is my first, it's actually my second camera. First camera was a Konica that my mother got me with grocery store stamps. And that got stolen in Chicago, and I replaced it with this Nikon. So a lot of my touchstone original images were made with this Nikon F3 HP. Some analog cameras for those of you who care about such things. A Mamiya 7. Makina Plabo. This is a German Japanese collaboration. It's a great 6x7 camera. I don't shoot a lot of film anymore, but I just remind myself that I have to occasionally shoot film, and that these machines are kind of indestructible and perfect as they were designed originally. So, yeah, it's inspiration. What else? Okay, so I was talking about the photograph as an object. And while it is, a mirror, it's a reflection, it's also an object. And so I try to bring the photograph into dialogue with other objects. In this case, I found this bottle in New Orleans. I found this oxidized rake also in New Orleans. And I made this image in the lower 9th ward of a home that had been completely overgrown. In the lower 9th ward, right? And so I was thinking about how the rake itself is almost like a everyday object of percussion in it. Because I like to sweep and I like to rake. I'm from the Midwest. I'm from Ohio originally, so I like a tidy pile of raked up leaves. I decided to sketch an idea here where I brought everyday objects together. This old bottle, this Purex bottle, bleach bottle, together with a drumstick and the rake. That's the Mississippi River right there. Again, it's a sketch, but I'm working through it. You can see plenty of rakes over there. Let me grab a drink here. What else? Gatekeeping series. So I live in Oakwood, Venice Beach, which is a section in Venice Beach. Historically, it's the African American, it's a black section of Venice Beach, and there's a long, beautiful, powerful history to that. Parts of it less beautiful in terms of how redlining created it and how aggressive development and code enforcement and gang injunction type stuff has really kind of destroyed the fabric of that history. But when a lot of these homes, these modest bungalows, get demolished for what I call Dwell Magazine McModulars. Don't get me wrong, I like contemporary architecture, but a lot of those bungalows are some of the most beautiful pieces of architecture. In fact, a lot of them were built by people from Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana. So if you go to Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, and you look at the architecture of the homes down there, you'll see a lot of that reflected in this neighborhood, which a lot of people don't realize that. But the cottages, the bungalows. But anyhow, people come in, they purchase these homes, and then a lot of times the homes get destroyed to make way for something new. And what I do is I go in and I salvage objects. In this case, I've been salvaging the gates. And then of course, my photography of neighbors, acquaintances, strangers, oceanscapes, etc., that I've been making over the years in the neighborhood. I then take those images and weave them into the fabric of the chain link. You look over here. I just said just go close and look at some of the details because it's hard to get a wide shot. So I was just reminded to say my name. Apparently I did not say my name. I am Glen Wilson.
So that one more time?
Glen Wilson. And this is the Venice Art Crawl, 10-year anniversary. And you're in my studio in Oakwood. Camera work done by Miles J. Wilson. Sounds done by Reed, son of Will, over here. How are we doing time-wise?
You're fine. We have some people that want to know, are your images shot on film or digital?
Uh-huh.
And are they secret or licensed?
Some technical questions. Okay. I will try to answer the technical questions. Some of it's trade secrets, right? But some of my images are shot digital. Others are shot on film. The prints themselves, I have experimented with industrial techniques using plastic, resin-based materials, printed double-sided. And then I've also done stuff more traditionally on paper. But when I work on paper, it's a more vulnerable material. So I have to do something where I sandwich the, since it's double-sided, I have to sandwich the images together, but I also create a core image. I mean, a core, sort of like a triply. Image, core, image, sandwiched together. And then I have to, of course, measure out my gates and think about how I want to cut the strips. And that's a whole sort of meticulous and convoluted process trying to get that right. But you know, the digital analog divide, I err on the side of whatever it takes, whatever tools it takes to tell an interesting story, whatever tools it takes to get an interesting frame. It's all the photographic. You know, I call it, people say, what's your medium? I say it's the photographic. Film is photographic at its heart, at its core. Even like sometimes there's not a camera there, but it's a photographic moment. And now with cameras being, and photography being ultimately democratized, everyone's got a camera in their pocket, that medium has become the most democratized medium that we have in our culture. And that's exciting and interesting, and it changes the way it functions, and it's a challenge for those who've been using it as a tool for years and years. It's exciting for people who are just picking it up for the first time.
We have another question.
Okay.
Do the images on the fence relate to anyone in Venice?
The images on the fence are absolutely, they are the citizens of Venice. These are the people who are walking down the street, people who, in the case of Oakwood, people who greet each other in that old school fashion. I'm not going to go all the way around with this because it's too tight, but yeah, these are all neighbors. These are all neighbors, and unfortunately, some people come through and they move on. But when I show these images to people in the neighborhood, everybody knows somebody. So, and I always engage with my subjects. It's important to me to ask people's permission and to you know, have it be collaborative. Photography is street photography, also has elements of choreography. It's collaborative. It's all that. So, I'm gonna show you. Well, first, come over here. Come over. So this piece, well, it's an evolving piece, right? It's a portrait in the center. It's an image I made as part of a series called Broken Record. And I had one in one part of my studio, and I had the other in another part of my studio, and I was like, wait a minute, these need to come together. And so I brought them together, the Monarch Wing, the portrait, which was taken like the day after George Floyd was murdered, and everything was popping off in our neighborhood and all the rest of the country. And this youth right here was getting ready to go do his or her thing, and took this quick portrait. And when I put the Monarch Wing next to the portrait, I was like, oh, that actually works. That actually works. And so even though it was sort of two separate ideas initially, I like to layer and to look for, tease out concepts and connections. And I had some folks in the studio yesterday who were born and raised 30, 40, 50 years living in Venice, in Oakwood, and they're activists in the neighborhood. And when they saw this, they immediately talked about how the Monarch Wing is a symbol of brown pride, brown activism. And so when she looked at this, she saw the unity of black and brown in the movement, which I thought was interesting. Because I was feeling that too, so it was kind of cool to have someone else pick up on that. Sorry about that. Come on here. So these are images I've had hanging on my wall for years. It's an old contact sheet. Photographs I made in Kenya. And I was just blown away by how this Samburu warrior, whose Western name, he went by James, but here's see him down here. Just how decked out he was and how beautiful, how gorgeous he is, and how meticulously curated his presentation of self is, right? And I had it hanging at one part of my studio, and then I realized this gate right here, this large gate that I had made a portrait of a neighbor, and he's very meticulously presented as well. I started thinking about, is there a relationship that we can forge between these two? So I don't know how that's going to work out, but it's just the sketching process, you know? Okay. So go ahead and look around a little bit more. I'll see if there's any more questions. Maz, come check this out over here. So I was showing the Monarch Wing. Maybe come over here. Your arms are gonna get tired. I don't know if the lighting is...
It's pretty good.
Okay. We had been in drought. I mean, newsflash, we're still in a drought, but we had been in a drought for a very long time, and then we got this major downpour, and so everybody was just relieved. When the rain stopped, everybody's out walking. I'm out walking, and I get to the intersection of California and Abbot Kinney, and just stuck to this glistening lit off of the street, and then I took it into Abbott's Habit, got my coffee, and then I brought it back to the studio and I photographed it. But here's like just a little quick
what's your inspiration?
My inspiration is basically the idea of like mapping and thinking about collective consciousness and the intersection of public and private, both in terms of identity and in terms of neighborhood. So like this project right here is a mapping project. I'm mapping the neighborhood, thinking about the unofficial narrative of the neighborhood through the ephemeral objects that I find on the streets, right? And there's kind of a syntax that's created with these objects when they're side by side. So I'm interested in that, the linguistic aspects of it as well.
So people would like to know where they can see your artwork in person.
Okay. You know what? I have an opportunity coming up soon I'm very excited about. I've shown the work separate series and separate contexts, but I have a show coming up at the end of October at an excellent gallery called Various Small Fires. So that's going to be October 30th. I think that's going to open. So a lot of this work and that you've seen in the studio visit will be installed properly. And a lot of work that you haven't seen will also be in that show. So I'm excited about that. I'm going to be hard at work over the next couple months getting that prepared. So I would say come out. In whatever form that show opens, if we have a proper opening, it'll be great. If we have a socially distanced opening, that'll also be great. If we have a virtual opening, that'll also be great. Various Small Fires at the end of October. Probably got about 150 of these. This is fun. This is just like a great little.
3 minutes.
3 minutes. I guess for me, it's the way that the objects, they have a kind of vernacular quality, sort of like the gates. And when they're in relationship to each other, they kind of begin to tell a story. I call this series Broken Record, and the irony is I had been working on this series for like 3 years, and then I was clearing the fence line between my property and the neighbor's property of some major jungle-like overgrown morning glory, and I came across this right here. I kind of like the way it's almost like the Santa Monica Bay. It's got this kind of terrain, this topography to it, and the fact that you have no idea what the album is. If you could get the needle in the groove, you'd know what it was, but otherwise you gotta just imagine what it could be, if it's from the 70s or the 80s. Objects have memory.
1 minute.
So anyhow, I appreciate it. Thank you again to Venice Art Crawl. Thank you for sticking around and checking out the work. And I'm private on Instagram, but if you're interested in following, by all means, I will definitely would love you to check in. And we got Toby Ann coming up next, another artist from Venice. So I'm gonna let you all go on and check out Toby Ann. All right.